this is Mayor Tom Broderick, and we are excited to be here today, just getting ready to go across the street in a few minutes to be able to watch the dedication of the 8th Street Eisenhower Veterans Bridge. That's going to be dedicated. It was a county project that the city was happy to take some part in terms of assisting with some getting the funding appropriated. But it is a county project, but of course it's just right outside our front doors here at City Hall, and it means such a great thing for the folks of Anderson to be able to have a connectivity that's going to make sense on a brand new bridge. And I'm very proud to be joined right now with two folks that were clearly instrumental in this. And immediately to my right is Chuck Lesser. Chuck was the county engineer who really was on this project from day one up until really right at the end. And the only reason it just briefly halted there was because Chuck was so kind to agree to come over and be city engineer. But I know he kept his hands in that and worked with the county folks after he became city engineer. So Chuck, we might talk a little bit. Before we do, I should just go ahead and introduce Bill Hanka to Chuck's right. Bill Hanka is with Hanka Advisors, which is a consulting and lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. And Bill has been associated with the city of Anderson for many years, and during my term he had agreed to stay with us and work with us, and he's helped on so many different projects on behalf of the city in Washington, getting through red tape and working closely with the congressional delegation and so forth. And again, he was instrumental in this and right on the front end as well as they began to put in these applications. And we might talk first, I guess, a little bit for folks at home, and Chuck, if you want to start that conversation, talk a little bit about when this project began and the number of applications we had to go through to get where we ended up getting to for today.
We actually started the process in 2006. We did a study on the old 8th Street Bridge to see if we could repair it or had to replace the bridge. The study determined that the bridge needed to be replaced, that the deficiencies of the bridge could not be properly repaired to get a long life out of that. So once we realized that we had to replace the bridge, then we started into the concept of the bridge, the preliminary design of it, and trying to figure out where we were going to find funding for the project. In 2009, that's when the Tiger Grant application started. We were far enough along that we actually applied for the first Tiger Grant, but our project wasn't far enough along for construction, but we did apply the first time and all 8 times, and then received the federal grant on the 8th time.
And Bill, we might explain to the folks watching this what Tiger stood for and really how it came about to even exist in the first place.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Mayor. The Tiger Grant grew out of what we call in Washington the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, more commonly known as the Stimulus Bill, which is something that was enacted to get America working again in the height of the 2008-2009 recession. And it was thought that if we spent money on boots on the ground, hard hats out there working in the field, we could get people working again and spending and get the economy moving again. And that's where Tiger came from. And Tiger stood for Transportation Investment Generating and Economic Recovery Grant Program. It's now called BUILD, which is another acronym I won't bore you with. But Tiger has really come into its own in Washington, and it's still being funded. Congress funds it every year at a certain amount, somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion. Even with that amount of money, which you think sounds like a lot of money, when you comes to doling out projects, usually only 40 to 50 projects annually get awarded. So it's very, very competitive. Yeah. That's one of the reasons it took us a while, because you write a very good application, but then there's a process where it gets to the secretary's desk after many, many reviews by senior staff, a technical review, a benefit cost review, but then it gets to the secretary's desk and he or she has to pick from a lot of qualified projects, but there's not enough money to go around. So sometimes you get overlooked. And
the secretary talking about, of course, Secretary of Transportation, which is cabinet level position in Washington. And like you said, it is very competitive, and as you were mentioning, Chuck said number 8 was finally the right number, 7 times before it, and you're competing against communities all across the United States, obviously. I think we were talking earlier, the number 8, the one that got awarded, how many awarded this last time on that number 8?
There was 40 projects awarded. We were the 16th largest out of those 40. The applications cover the entire United States, U.S. territories, and Indian reservations.
And my understanding, Bill, I think you'd said earlier, we were talking this morning that there were literally thousands of applications turned in for that.
Absolutely. The competition is intense to be awarded when you have, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 applications turned in and there's 40 that get picked. So it's very hard. And
I know, Chuck, you mentioned earlier that when you first started, obviously initially it started as a concept, and it ended up being obviously a real need because of the condition of our bridge, and so you had to move forward. But of course, when they're looking at these applications, not only are they looking at the application, but they want to know where you're at in the process. In other words, are you shovel ready, so to speak?
Yes.
And so I know it took a while to put our application process in such a state that it really got their attention that we were serious and we had the wherewithal to get it done.
Yes. I think it was to our advantage in applying every year from the very beginning, because every year we would have discussions and phone calls with USDOT and find out where our application landed, what our deficiencies in the paperwork was, and what we could improve on the next time. And after about the 4th or 5th time, they got to knowing us and said, "Oh yeah, we've been watching your application, you're coming right along, keep it up," and that gave us encouragement to keep applying.
Well, what I always thought was interesting was when, as you know, this obviously is a county project, but a lot of folks came together, and I know I've talked to Commissioner Richwine about that, and he agrees that because of so many people in the community, everything from our university president at Anderson University to our Chamber of Commerce folks to the city leaders, former mayors, present mayor, everybody really on the same page and putting politics aside. At the same time, obviously Senator Donnelly, who I know was involved pretty much from the get-go. We had Congressperson Brooks that got on board and helped us immensely. But without all those people coming together, it really wouldn't have been possible, most likely.
Yes, through the entire process, I never saw any politics. It was all a unified group come together for one specific project for the downtown area of Anderson.
And I think today, as we move forward here and go across the street and see this, I think we're going to really see that highlighted, because I know Commissioner Richwine, a strong believer in that as well. And Bill, working on all those applications, what was the message you would deliver when it would be turned down? What'd you tell everybody?
Well, I'll say it's hard to give people bad news, but Anderson never gave up. The community never gave up, and the answer I would usually get, and I know when I came to talk to you in the beginning, was no, we're going back. We're going to get that money. That's important to Anderson, to the county, and the region. It's a important regional route, and we were not going to give up, and you didn't, and that really showed that by the 8th time, I think it impressed DOT. Like Chuck said, that we kept coming back and we wouldn't take no for an answer.
Well, I remember very well when all 3 of us were together and some others at the DOT when we met, and it was clear that even remember them using the word perfect. They thought the application was perfect. They just wanted to make sure there was plenty of local support, but on top of it, even congressional support. And I think once they saw all that come together, it really just all fell in place. And probably in the end, I hope, like to think that it made the Secretary's decision a little bit easier in the end.
Absolutely. And I'll say, Mayor, coming to Washington, I know you're a busy man and it's hard to get away from here, but it made such a difference when you went to Washington, you looked them in the eye and you said, yeah, this is important to us, and here's why.
And Chuck, you've done such a great job in following that project throughout. I know when you agreed to come over here and be our city engineer, which very much was appreciated and still is, but I know you sort of felt like you were leaving a baby behind a little bit. But I noticed you didn't let it stay too far behind. You kept your eye on it.
Yes.
And it's really a neat design, and we talked, Chuck was instrumental in working with the commissioners to get some extra design going to have those overlooks. They're pretty neat. You might talk about those overlooks. Folks haven't seen them yet. We
started the design process, and one of the key things was if you were ever under the old bridge, the style of the bridge and the items that were hanging under the bridge, there were a lot of birds roosting under the bridge. And that was one of my goals on this, is to not have an area where birds could roost. Because we have trails on both sides of the river, We have an area for picnic tables we can put under there, or an area where people can gather. And so that was one of our first goals. The next goal is when we moved on to the sidewalks, we wanted to add the railing between the traffic and the sidewalk to make it safer for the pedestrians and the bicycles. And then when we looked at that, I said, can we put some kind of overlooks so people can stop and look out over the river or get out of the way of a bicycle if they have to, and things like that. So that's where that concept came from, and we moved forward with that.
Yeah, well, it's really neat, and it's just really a pretty design, and a lot of folks that'll remember hadn't been gone too long now, just a year and a half or two since it was demoed out. But obviously, the original bridge was much higher,
Yes.
and this one's a little bit more user friendly on that. To talk a little bit about why that was in the first place, and obviously why we've changed it up.
There was a railroad spur that ran behind the jail, and it was in place and operational during the design and construction of the previous bridge. Shortly after that, then the railroad stopped using that, and that became the access road where the jail was built later. And so that height of that was not needed anymore. So we lowered that. We still have the access road back to the jail for their deliveries and any use they have. They have some parking back there. But we actually lowered the bridge 7 feet. And so that took the hump out of it. You can see the traffic signal now as you're going up the bridge. And it also makes the sidewalk ADA compliant, being less than 5% grade now.
You might want to talk a little bit about, obviously, you fellows and the commissioners worked hard to bring this to the place that it is today, but obviously we had to have workers and designers and architects to design it and ultimately to build it. So talk a little bit about those contractors, and I know a lot of them are familiar to us, but they did a great job.
The design team was from consulting firm of Beam Longest and Neff. Worked closely with them. They did the study and the design. We utilized federal funds for their fees, 80% federal funds. Then we moved on into the construction phase. NDOT bid the project for us. Primco was the low bidder. They're a bridge contractor out of Fort Wayne. They came down and did that. And then United Consulting was the engineering firm that did the inspection work for the county on that project.
Well, they all worked together well and really did a good job. And one of the neat stories also, in addition to just the community coming together and working so well together to get this to happen, was something you don't always see in these projects, and that is that when it was all said and done, it came in a little bit less than expected.
Yes, it actually came in under budget. One of the things that we have to do in projects like this is we have to estimate the construction cost along with the inspection fees early on, and sometimes we add a little extra to those, but it takes so many years to get those built that those extras get eaten up in inflation and additional costs. So we felt like we were right on when we went to the bid. But Primco had worked for Madison County before on some federal aid projects. They were familiar with Madison County. They're not that far away, and they were very interested in building this project. They really enjoy challenges like this bridge was. And so I called them after the bid, and I said, you know, NDOT's going to ask if I want to award this to you, and they said, we're ready to go. We're happy with our bid. We wanted the project, so that's how we set our price.
Well, that was great. And in addition to only coming in under budget, they also stayed pretty much on track on timetable.
Yes. We had a few delays in the project, added a few days to it, but for the most part, we were right on time for completion.
I know we were sort of shooting for the July time frame to kind of wrap it up, and of course this is just right in the middle of August, so pretty close. We did have some kind of wet weather this year, to say the least, and some cold weather too.
Right. Most of our unknowns were underground and under the river. You don't know what's under there until you start digging. There was a bridge before the bridge that we just tore down that went from 8th Street to 9th Street, and we found the old foundation on the east bank, and we had to remove that, and that took an additional 2 weeks to get that out and get it prepared to build the end of the bridge down there.
I know a lot of people don't think about it, but obviously there's infrastructure that has to get from one side of the land to the other, on the other side of the river, and we don't run that above ground, we put it underground.
Right. We also had a 24-inch water line that we relocated and bored under White River and under the levee that was over 600 feet long in one piece of pipe. Wow. That we bored and pulled underneath, and that was one of the first things we did before we started building the bridge.
Yeah. Well, it's a neat story and really a marvelous structure, and I just wanted to showcase for the folks as we get ready to go across the street and watch the dedication and give thanks to all the folks that worked on it, from the congressional folks to the state folks, the city and county. And I know you guys were very instrumental in all this and had a lot of knowledge. So for the future and the history of the community to know how this came about and what it's all about, I just wanted to sit down and talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
This morning, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out for the ribbon cutting ceremony for Madison County Bridge 502, a bridge in Anderson, Indiana over White River. And isn't she beautiful?
Yes.
Most of the time when I get the opportunity to do something like this, I just stand up here and wing it, but I've got a bunch of bullet points that I really think I need to touch on. So I may end up doing a little bit of both. I may end up just reading them all. It just depends on how nervous I get. But I want to make sure I cover all this because I think the history behind this bridge is very important. And it's certainly going to outlive me, and it's going to be a signature part of this community for a long time to come. Madison County began applying for federal grants under the Tiger Grant Program, which is now known as BILL, back in 2009. It was a very long process from our first application in 2009 to being awarded $13.5 million in federal funds in July of 2016. That was our 8th attempt. This community came together, worked together, put various applications together for 8 years. And I think that was truly part of our success and something that's important to remember as we move forward, how to work together. How did we do it? How did we really solve this puzzle to get one of the 40 grants that were awarded in 2016? First, we assembled the support of the entire local community, including the cities of Anderson, Alexandria, and Elwood, the Madison County Chamber of Commerce, and the Corporation for Economic Development, Anderson University, the Flagship Enterprise Center, Community Hospital, and St. Vincent's Hospital, the Anderson Community School Corporation, JobSource, and various other local businesses all came together. Then the Madison team planned together, went to DC together, met with top officials at the Department of Transportation, met with our own Indiana congressional delegation, and expressed the need for this project and the inability to afford completing it on our own. It was a tough sell at NDOT, and we kept coming back, and they were gracious enough to tell us what we had done well and what we had not done so well so that we were better prepared for the next opportunity. As we move forward, we had a very compelling story to tell. The 8th Street Bridge was at the end of its functional life and was soon slated to be closed. This bridge carries over 16,000 vehicles a day. The Tiger Grant was the only feasible way for the county to come up with the necessary funds to replace the bridge. The 8th Street Bridge provides the only east-west corridor over the White River through Anderson. It is a key route for first responders, including fire, ambulance, city police, and our own sheriff's department, that bridge the gap between the west side and the east side. The 8th Street Bridge is also the primary route from the east side of Anderson to both of our major hospitals. And any other route besides taking this one could add as much as 30 minutes and that patient getting to the hospital on time. There was certainly a lot of competition for these grants, and smaller communities such as ours often got overlooked. In the early days of the Tiger program, a large portion of the funds tended to go before larger urban areas and not smaller or more rural communities like our own. But once again, Madison County never gave up, and we worked together. We kept applying and improving our application, meeting with DOT officials, and pressing our congressional delegation to contact DOT on our behalf. The final result after 8 years was a $13.5 million award in 2016. That was the 16th largest grant awarded out of 40 Tiger grants that year, vesting large urban areas like San Francisco, Atlanta, Cleveland, and Broward County, Florida. And DOT, since that time, has also recognized the importance of key transportation infrastructure in smaller communities such as ours, by now requiring that there be a 50-50 split of build projects awarded to urban and rural communities. And once again, I thank each and every one of you for coming. We've got a few speakers this evening, several local officials in the audience. But first, I would like to introduce Congresswoman Susan Brooks. Susan Brooks represents the 5th District of Indiana, which spans 8 urban, suburban, and rural counties in central Indiana, including the north side of Indianapolis. She uses her background as a deputy mayor of Indianapolis, a U.S. attorney, and a community college administrator to improve education, jobs, health, and homeland security. She currently serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee and is a member of the Health, the Communications and Technology, and the Oversight and Investigation Committees. Through her membership on the Energy and Commerce Committee, Congresswoman Brooks is working on mental health, substance abuse, biodefense, public safety, telecommunication issues, and more. She also serves on the House Select Committee on the modernization of Congress, where she is focused on restoring confidence in Congress and making it easier for Americans to participate in the business of the people's house. Susan Brooks, and thank you for all your help in getting us to success in this project.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Good afternoon, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here. Thank you, Commissioner Richwine, for that kind introduction. I want to thank all of the Madison County folks who are here. It's my understanding you're going to be acknowledging folks later. I could take my time as I look out and see so many people who were involved in this, and that could take a little bit of time, but certainly it's wonderful to have my partner at the federal level, former Senator Joe Donnelly, Senator Donnelly. Without that partnership that we worked on, not only on the 8th Street Bridge, but on so many great partnerships together, from the opioid crisis and bills that we worked on together to law enforcement, mental health. We could kind of go on, but this is about this big, beautiful, awesome bridge. But it's wonderful that you are here today, and really want to thank you. I always enjoyed working with him on really important projects to communities throughout the 5th District. It's especially good to see Mayor Broderick here. And I want to tell you what this bridge and what the success finally that we had in securing federal funding, and I would like to remind people, federal funding is your funding. These were your taxpayer dollars, but yes, could have gone anywhere in the country. And finally, after the persistence, the passion, and the dedication of this community, and the advocacy by many at all levels, we were able to get this done. I learned about this when I came into office under Mayor Smith, and then Mayor Smith passed the baton to Mayor Broderick. And this is the way that good local government and then good federal government should be. Because when there are changes in administration, that expertise, that passion, that the dedication to helping citizens, and that's what it's about. And we saw that particularly with this project. So the effort to rebuild this bridge has been a long time coming. It was hard work, dogged determination. And there are so many tireless advocates here from Anderson and Madison County. But I think it's also a testament to this community and to something that you knew was incredibly important. It was something that you were willing to, again, set aside, partisan divide, and it's great. We love to have people riding on your bike packs, don't we? I think it's awesome. It's good to have a biker. How about a kayak or a canoe down in the river? Let's have that happen today. But that's what you want. That's what pulls communities together. That's why a place like this, is so critically important. It's going to bring those bicyclists. It's going to bring the pedestrians. It's going to bring those moms and dads in strollers down here. They're going to bring them closer to the water. But so importantly, it's going to make this community safer, in large part for public safety. What's awesome about beautiful older communities like Anderson is that there's so much history here. But we have to take care of our history. And this is a city that has always taken care of its history. But then history, and when it comes to buildings and bridges, they can grow weary over time. And I love the fact, Commissioner, that you called the bridge she, because she was tired. She was not safe. It had gotten to that point. But because of the wonderful people here in Anderson, you were able to connect the businesses, the communities, the kids from one part of the town to the next part of the town. And this is, and I want to congratulate Beam Longest and Neff and all of the people who built this beautiful bridge. When I pulled up and I saw it, it is really, truly one of the most beautiful bridges I've ever seen in the state of Indiana. And so Anderson, you should be very proud. All of those who built it, all of those who designed it, all of those who, I understand things, were getting checked even at the very last minute. When you have a party and a celebration like this, that's what makes sure everything is done. And I look forward to, spending more time crossing this bridge and seeing all the people connecting the east and west side of Anderson. I was proud to be a part of it. I was proud also to share with you. I want to thank Kevin Schultz and Autumn Meeker of my team, who were strong advocates for this bridge as well. They worked very hard. I know Kevin had been involved in this for quite some time before I came into office, and it made it easier to pick up the phone and call Secretary Fox and tell him how important it was to the state of Indiana and the 5th District. With that, I'll give it back to John. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Anderson.
Thank you again, Susan, and thank you very much for coming. Our next speaker is former Senator Joe Donnelly. Joe attended Notre Dame, earned his JD, elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2006, ran for U.S. Senate in 2012, won the seat once occupied by former Senator Richard Lugar, and served on the Senate Armed Services, Agriculture, Aging, and Banking Committees. Former Senator Joe Donnelly.
It is so great to be here. Commissioner forgot to mention that I served on the Let's Get a Bridge Committee as well. But it is such a privilege to be with you and to be with this whole team, the Beam Longest Neff team, who did so much on this. And one of your members, Patty Smith, actually grew up next door to my wife. And to see all of my friends who served in government with me, my partner on this, Susan Brooks, it was truly an example of never worrying about politics at any single point. It was just, how can we get this done? How can we make sure we get this project in Anderson? And this team worked for years and years and years, 8 years, as you mentioned, Commissioner. And every year you would come back and we'd say, we're moving up the ranks a little bit. We're moving up a little more. We're moving up a little more. And think of this. The entire United States of America, we received the 16th largest grant in the United States right here in Anderson, which is a real testament to the team. To our state leaders, thank you so very, very much. To Tim Land and Terry Austin, all our state senators, all our state representatives. To our county team, couldn't have been any better at any point. Every year I looked forward to you arriving and coming to the office and saying, look, this is the year. It was always optimistic. It was always, this can be the year. To our city team, which was so terrific. We worked with Mayor Smith, who was a great, great teammate, and who handed it off to Mayor Broderick, who was a tremendous teammate as well. And There was no politics on that either. They just worked hand in glove to get this done. Mayor Smith was all in, Mayor Broderick was all in, and the result is we have this incredibly beautiful bridge. And it's a testament to Anderson's future, to its present, how much is getting done here now, to the great opportunities that lie ahead of us. This is a wonderful, wonderful day. And I will tell you, I was privileged to work with so many extraordinary people. But there was never a better team than the Anderson team, the county, the state, the city, the local institutions like our university. Mr. President, thank you so much. To all of the business community as well. And to all our contractors who every single day came here with their hard hats, with their buckets, and built this testimony to the people of the city of Anderson. It was such a privilege to work with you, and I'm so grateful for you thanking me to come here. It's my thank you to you to allow me to be here. And if you give me 15 minutes, I'll get my kayak out of the car and we'll all be in business. So I want to say one other thing. One of the great members of my team who worked nonstop on this happens to be here today, Kate Ohl, who did a wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you very, very much.
If it wasn't for the both of you and also Senator Coates, and I think Mike Pence was in on the very beginning of this as well when we made our first application, everybody was always all in. And I think it's very important that you're here, and we appreciate your hard work on behalf of us. Our next speaker is Jay Dumontel and Eryn Fletcher from the Indiana Division of Federal Highway. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name's Eryn Fletcher, and I do work for the Federal Highway Administration here in our Indiana Division office. And I can just say it is an extreme pleasure to be here today. We've already heard how competitive the grant process was and the amount of perseverance this community had to see today become a reality. It's really no accident we're here. It's perseverance, partnerships, and I have another P word for you, persistence. In 2016, the fall of 2016, when the award was made, I get this email. I'm just an engineer. I just work in an office, deliver projects, help the state with projects. And so about 3 years ago, I got invited to the partnership, and boy, am I so glad to have been a part of this, and as is the DOT. So then the real work beyond getting that final design done, getting the contractor on board, happened very quickly. In April of 2017, Primco was awarded the job. I saw Todd Frederick back there. Primco, congratulations. Beautiful bridge. It was a very challenging construction project. And some of the challenges, I'll just mention a couple because I know you guys have other things to do with your afternoon. But we had to keep the bridge open during construction. We had to avoid a historic landmark. Did I mention that there was a boring of a new water line underneath the White River? That had to happen. And oh, what about that levee over there that we had to construct around? So a very challenging project. These guys persevered when problems happened, and there were a few. I'm not going to mention a whole lot because honestly it went very smoothly. They did encounter an old foundation. Of course, the bridge strength didn't cooperate quite the way we thought it would. And when that water line connection was made, maybe it could have gone a little smoother. But these guys persevered, and they are a huge reason why we're allowed to stand here today and admire this beautiful bridge. So on behalf of the Department of Transportation, Federal Highway, I just want to thank the county, the city, and the state for the opportunity to be a part of this partnership. It's been a pleasure working with you to deliver this bridge, which will be here for generations to come. Thank you very much.
The name of the new 8th Street Bridge is the Dwight D. Eisenhower Veterans Memorial Bridge. We wanted to be able to incorporate the new with the old and honor those who have served our country, especially those here in Madison County. To speak on their behalf today, we have Dan Combs. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Daniel Combs, an emergency medicine physician with St. Vincent Emergency Physicians, who serves our country as commanding officer of a U.S. Naval Reserve medical unit supporting the Navy's 5th Fleet and the U.S. Central Command. Please join me in welcoming the captain of the voting.
So unlike many of these people today, I had nothing to do with building this bridge, other than being a faithful taxpayer like all the rest of you. But I just have to say, after seeing it for the first time from this perspective, I really am overwhelmed. And it is beautiful, and I want to thank everyone here as a citizen of Anderson, a citizen of Madison County, for whatever role you played, whether it was securing funding, or whether you were down here digging the new water line. I thank you for that, and I know that I speak for my family and for the fellow citizens of the city and county that we are going to greatly appreciate and enjoy this bridge for many years to come. It's an incredible privilege to be with you today, to speak on behalf of all the veterans of our community, to say thank you for honoring those who have worn the cloth of our nation and naming this beautiful span over our White River the Dwight D. Eisenhower Veterans Memorial Bridge. I couldn't be more proud to share that honor with President Eisenhower, a veteran's veteran, if you will. Growing up in Abilene, Kansas, Eisenhower's future greatness was not predestined. His Midwestern childhood in a very religious, hardworking family would feel very familiar to many of us. That blue-collar upbringing made a free education at West Point most attractive. After graduating without any particular distinction, he was bitterly disappointed that he didn't find glory on the battlefields of Europe in the First World War. He was repeatedly denied what seemed prime opportunities by the War Department because he served in logistics and infantry and had shown particular ability as an organizer of men and materiel, builder of training camps, and developer of policy for a new weapon system, the tank, which would become vital to the Army in decades to come. While building organizations and infrastructure may not be as glorious as battle to a West Point graduate, it laid the foundation that would mark his career for success, both as general and as president. We have the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways as further testament to this man's vision and commitment to the hard work of improving the lives and security of those he served. Personally, as a kid growing up right here in Park Place, I never knew Anderson without the Eisenhower spanning the White River. To a young boy playing baseball right over here in Athletic Park, or sitting in the back seat of his father's car crossing the span, the bridge in my imagination may as well have been the pyramids of Egypt or the Great Wall of China. This bridge taught me a lot over the years. My Uncle Walt, a World War II veteran who recently died at the age of 106, used to visit us every summer for Church of God camp meeting. Many of you would remember that. And he seemed to have a sense of awe and wonder about this bridge as well. He would take me on early morning bike rides along the river. It was under this bridge that I first encountered homelessness. Uncle Walt had great empathy for the disadvantaged, and we would talk about how someone could find themselves seeking shelter under the Eisenhower. This bridge taught me hard work. As I grew older, I became a competitive runner. There aren't a lot of hills in Anderson, so bridge repeats on the Eisenhower became a training staple when I ran at Anderson High School and later Anderson University. The bridge also taught me the importance of reflection. I spent a lot of time mid-span on the Eisenhower watching the flowing of the White River below. Sometimes the waters were raging at flood stage, other times very casually, as on a midsummer's day, much like today, but always flowing along as it's done since before Chief Anderson walked the banks, and as it will long after all of us are gone. The Eisenhower has become more than simply a utilitarian means to cross a river. It has become a part of the lives of those of us who call Madison County home. As a member of the United States Navy, I've been absolutely amazed and blessed by the gratitude, support, and appreciation of our fellow citizens. My experience has been nothing but uniformly positive in the regard that our citizenry has for our military. I've had gas station clerks insist on buying my soft drinks as I travel, and strangers buy meals when I happen to be out in public wearing my uniform. I actually brought a little something here to show you. This is just a little beanie, and it sits in my drawer. I don't even think my wife knows it's there, and I'm sure someday when I'm long gone, they'll be cleaning things out and say, "What is this?" This little beanie showed up in a box when I was in Afghanistan. There were actually a lot of beanies in that box, and scarves. And it was just a symbol and a representative of the love that our citizens had for us. I had no idea who it came from. We got a lot of boxes full of gifts and things just to cheer us while we were away from our families during long periods of deployment. But I pictured some sweet old ladies in the basement of some church somewhere knitting crocheting these beanies and scarves because they didn't want some servicemen to be cold overseas while they were away from their family. And while there's not any particular monetary value to this, it means a lot to me, and I'm going to keep it because it represents to me the love that the U.S. citizens had for their military, and I'm very appreciative of that. While it hasn't always been so, I'm grateful that in this day, our nation honors those willing to serve. I don't say this for myself. I'm just an old doc who is privileged to care for those who go into harm's way. But for those young men and women who truly place themselves in dangerous situations on our behalf, many who return changed or don't return at all, for them I want to express our gratitude. It truly touches my soul when people go out of their way to say thank you. This bridge, as named, will serve as an enduring, strong tribute to the veterans of Anderson and Madison County. Every time someone crosses this bridge, he or she will know that this is a community that values her veterans. People sometimes ask, how does one best honor a veteran? What words do we use? What actions are most appreciated? A heartfelt thank you is always appropriate, but I would suggest the highest tribute is this: be the best American that you can be. If you build bridges, build the finest bridges you can. If you teach, inspire the youth to love learning. If you assemble trucks, make the very best trucks in the world. Whatever your task, commit to doing it to the very best of your ability. Innumerable acts of excellence and pride in a job well done will build a country worth defending. And at the end of the day, before you fall asleep, reflect on whether you've done something today that makes your community a better place to live for those around you. Innumerable acts of self-sacrifice and placing others above oneself will honor the sacrifice of every veteran. I leave you with a quote from a great sailor and a great American, John F. Kennedy. He said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce everybody else that here that may work for county government or city government and recognize the fact that they've had some part in this as well. State Senator, newly elected Mike Gaskell is here. Mike, where you at? State Senator Tim Lannon. Thanks for coming. State Representative Terry Austin. How'd I miss you? County Commissioner Kelly Gaskell. Kelly. County Commissioner Mike Phipps. Mike. Our County Engineer Joe Copeland's here. Joe. Former County Commissioner Stephanie Owens is in the house. And Jeff Harden is not here, but I would like to acknowledge Jeff. And wish he was here to share this special day with us. Former County Engineer Chuck Lesser. Chuck, where are you at? Chuck, I've been in county government not as long as you were, but for a long time. And you've been a good engineer for Madison County. And you're going to be a great engineer for the city of Anderson as well. But appreciate your work on this project, but every other one that you've done. Thank you. both Tom and Kevin Smith were instrumental in traveling to DC and actively participating in the pursuit of federal funding for this bridge. So once again, a great community effort, guys. Thank you. Jerry Alexander is here. He's on the county council, and he's also representing Senator Mike Braun. Jerry, thank you. Bill Hanka is here. Bill Hanka worked with us through thank you, Bill, all 8 applications on our behalf, making sure we were steering the right course, talking to the right folks, and when we weren't able to be there, he was still working on our behalf. And thank you for helping us in this successful project, Bill. We also have John Pistol. John, President of Anderson University. Rick Gardner is here. Rick, County Auditor. I don't want to forget Dan Dykes, who was our County Administrator. Dan. Also acknowledge Tim Westerfield, our current County Administrator. There in the back. Second tallest guy here, maybe. Brandy Hendrickson. Brandy here? Hey, Brandy. She was with Federal Highway and was there during part of this project, so thank you for your help as well. But once again, I know there's lots of folks here that participated in that process, and some that weren't in any particular position except just cared about Anderson and Madison County and flew out to DC and helped work on this project at DOT and with our Congresswoman and Senator to get her done. So thank you very much for that. We're about ready to wrap this whole thing up. We've got several veterans in the house, and if we could have all the veterans come up to cut the ribbon, we've got 4 sets of scissors. If we could get all the veterans behind the ribbon, and then maybe get any of the other folks that want to get behind, we can get a picture with those folks.
3, 2, 1.
Okay.